Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about the developer update from October 2022 for Dead by Daylight. And there's a couple of interesting things in here, but I'm really going to go over just two things, which is the bots and the flashlight changes. The flashlight changes are far more spicy. So in order to bait you to stay and watch this video, we're going to cover that last. But real quick, the whole discussion on bots, they're adding bots to custom matches now. So if you're new to the game as killer, you can go against bot survivors, feel way less stressed out, because I know it's very stressful as a killer. If you're new to the game, going against a team of survivors, even if they're not good, it's still a more stressful experience than playing survivor, in my opinion. So I'm really glad that they're doing that. They've had this basic technology in the tutorial for a little bit of time, but that tutorial is more of like predetermined actions, not real AI, where the behavior of the bots changes depending on what's going on. But it's kind of close to that from what I've seen. So survivor bots are certainly something that I can see being plausible, and it seems like that is what they're going to be finally having. I'm excited for this because finally I can go in custom matches and not have to pull in somebody just to start the match if I want to test something or test what an add-on does or test a particular combo, test if I can get on top of something, things like that. So I think this is a great thing that's happening. It'll make testing things a lot easier, and for newer players, it's going to be great too. So really only good stuff here. Now, the one thing is they do say that they're going to be adding killer bots in a future update. I'm going to make a bold prediction here and say that it's complete horseshit. I don't think they're going to do that at all. I think that is simply just too much work. We give behavior a lot of shit for breaking very simple things, taking very long time to do things that are very simple to code, but coding killer AI is extremely difficult. They've had just that trapper bot in the game for years, and that's all they've had. And that's just one killer out of 8 billion at this point. I just cannot imagine a world in which they add every killer that plays and use their power according to the map, according to where the survivors are, how they're moving. Like, it's just so many variables. I cannot ever see a world in which they devote the resources to doing that. I will be so surprised if they actually add killer bots. The only plausible way I can see it is if they add it like one every patch. Like, okay, next patch we have, the Wraith bot is now finally done. Next patch, the Hillbilly bot is now done. And then, in 40 years, we'll have all of the bots for all the killers. That would be something plausible. But to just say that we plan to include killer bots in a future update, like they're just going to add them all, no, that's not going to happen. I promise that is not going to happen. That's just way too much work, even for behavior. That is so much work. So, but the survivor bots are cool, and I think that's the more important part. So now let's go over the whole flashlight change. So there's two things happening that are major. One's a buff, one's a nerf. The nerf is you can no longer blind out of lockers anymore. So this was if you grabbed a survivor out of a locker, there could be someone else sitting right outside the locker, and you're locked into the animation, so you're just blinded and you can't do anything about it. I know, buddy, it's crazy, right? And that was fairly annoying to a lot of people because you're sort of locked in that animation and you can't really do anything when the survivor's sitting in the locker, sort of just leave them or grab them. So it put people in a scenario where you're just sort of forced to eat the blind or go somewhere else. On the flip side, they have made flashlight saves easier now. They have basically granted a little bit of wiggle room so you can screw up the timing by a quarter second plus or minus, a quarter of a second. So if you're a bit too early or probably like a bit too, actually, if you're a bit too late, it's not going to be it. This is if you're a bit too early. You'll have a bit of wiggle room to where the blind will still carry over. It's kind of like that one patch they did where they made it so there's no timing required whatsoever. You just shine the flashlight on the killer and it'll drop him at the end of the pickup animation, which was really stupid. I'm glad they didn't do that, but they kind of pushed it a little bit towards that. And the thing is, I'm okay with this. The whole thing with flashlights is I'm of the opinion that flashlights are terrible. They're the worst item in the game. They make people not do generators. They have to be in a perfect position. It makes people have to group up, which increases my chances of snowballing drastically. It's very easy to counter unless you're on like Rotten Field or something. Then you don't have like a wall to face, and that can be a bit more difficult. But for the most part, I consider flashlights even worse than keys because at least keys can have like blood amber on it or something. So I think flashlights are really bad, and I have no problem with them buffing this aspect of it because all this is going to do is make bad players slightly more potent with a flashlight. The good players are not really ever going to change. They already know the timing, so that's not going to be any different at all. So we're just going to have a scenario where newer players are a bit more of a threat with a flashlight, but as long as you're paying attention as killer and, you're making sure that after you down someone, you take a quick peek around, make sure no one's around, or you have a wall to face, I mean, you're going to be fine. This change is not really going to affect you. All this is going to do is make it easier for newer players to actually hit the save if they do arrive at the perfect time and place for it to happen. So I'm okay with that. Now, the whole drama starting is removing the whole locker blind thing. Now, I'm of the opinion that I didn't care about the whole locker blind thing. I can count on my hands the amount of times in playing this game for 6 years that I have been blinded out of a locker grab. It is extremely rare for me. Maybe I'm just lucky or something like that, or maybe I just don't put myself in situations where that becomes possible or whatever. But that so rarely happens to me that this change I'm not even going to notice. And the few times it has happened to me in that whole bully squad sense, where you have two people on Dead Dog Saloon, they burn the map offering, and they specifically go in lockers next to each other so you can't grab either of them. What I do is hack the game and retroactively put on Lightborn and destroy them. What I actually do is I just ignore them. The whole thing is people that do that, they want to fuck with the killer. That's the whole goal for people that play in that style with like a group of friends is they want to fuck with the killer. If you just leave them and they can't do that anymore, they kind of just become useless. They'll probably just follow you around. So it becomes disconcerting when two people go in a locker just to fuck with you. But every time that happens, I always win the match because I just go find the other two people that are working on gens that don't have flashlights. Now, if they all four have flashlights, I mean, fuck, bring Franklin's or something, dude. Like, you can prepare for that a bit. Bring Lightborn. Like, there are ways to prepare for that. But I guarantee not the entire team is going to have flashlights. So in that scenario, I would always just leave the people in the locker to go jerk off with each other and then just go chase the other people that are actually doing the gens. And I never had an issue with winning with that, even though it can be frustrating. I get that, to be put in a scenario where you don't really have an option, but to leave them, that can be frustrating. But you still end up winning those matches because there are two useless teammates doing nothing to progress the game. And that's why I think changing the whole locker blind thing actually might make the game harder for a killer. And the reason is the really good survivors that are just there to fuck around because they've done gens for 50,000 hours and they're bored of it now. The really good survivors that want to do those kinds of plays, now they can't do that anymore. So what else are they going to do? They're going to just do generators. The only saving grace against a lot of really good teams is they want to try to fuck with you, which makes them do gens way slower than a normal team that might not even be good, but they happen to spread out and they just want to get out of the match. So this is my theory that actually it might make the game harder for certain players because now those players are not going to be trying to do that bully stuff with lockers anymore. What they're going to be doing is just cranking out gens, probably out of spite for a little while. So actually, I think this is going to make games that would have been slower go a lot faster. So that is my concern with that, where everyone says this is a straight nerf for Survivor and a buff to killer. I think it's functionally going to work the opposite direction because I think locker blinds were a fairly rare scenario. And when they were going to happen, they were still wasting survivors' time. And now they're no longer going to be wasting their time. They're just going to be doing gens. So it might actually have the reverse effect here. That's just my theory, though. It is possible that it's just fixing an annoying issue, which, yeah, again, it was an annoying issue. But I am a bit worried that it'll have the reverse effect. Other than that, though, I think this is a overall good, just little update. This is not like the patch or anything like that. These are just changes that are oncoming. I do really like the flashlight being a bit more of a lenient window because new players with flashlights are useless. Even average players with flashlights are useless. The only time a flashlight is a bit of a threat is if they are extremely good players. That's what I've noticed. So the fact that this is going to make even a bit less experienced players a bit more of a threat might actually, in my opinion, bring flashlights from the worst item in the game to like above keys now, which is cool because I think flashlights have been nerfed so many times at this point that they're just a joke. So yeah, overall, good update. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Again, there's a lot of people salty on both sides about the whole locker thing. The important thing to remember about this is I guarantee this is happening so rarely that this change, I bet for both sides, no one's even going to notice this. Again, unless I'm the luckiest player in the world and you are all getting bully squads that join up in dual lockers every game. This is a fairly uncommon occurrence. I don't think it's worth drama. I don't think the game is going to really change pretty much at all. So relax, take a step back, and find some other way to fuck with the killer, I guess. I don't know. That's it. Thanks for watching. See ya.